With his order.
All right, we're recording now. So who's going to be chair?
Yikes.
I'm happy to take the chair.
Thank you, Angus.
In accordance with Charlie Baker's order, we are meeting publicly, and I'm improvising on this speech because I don't have it in front of me. But I'm Angus MacLeod. I'm acting as chair of the Sconset Advisory Board. And before beginning the meeting, I'll check attendance of the commissioners who are here. Starting with Mary Will.
I'm here.
Caroline Ellis.
I'm here.
And Clement Durkis.
I'm here, and I can hear you very clearly, Angus. Thank you.
Excellent. And staff, Holly Backus.
Present.
Excellent. So I'll call this to order, and we have our live meeting. Can I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
I would make that motion. This is Mary Will.
Thank you.
I will
Mary.
second that motion.
Thanks, Clement. All in favor? On your motion, Mary.
Aye.
Clement?
Aye.
And Mary?
And
Caroline.
Caroline.
Yes.
Caroline?
Yes. Yep. Fine.
And I as well. Did everyone approve the minutes that Rob wrote up last time? Is that already in the record, Holly? The minutes from the last meeting?
No, it's not on there. No.
Okay.
But I know everybody received them.
All right. Well, unless there are any objections, can I take a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Thank you, Clement. A second?
I'll second.
Was that Mary?
Caroline.
Caroline.
Oh, Caroline. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
And Caroline?
Yes.
And I as well. So let's move to the first application on the agenda for 6A Maury Lane. I think we do the public comments first, or do we have the project presented?
And hi, Angus and all. This is Robin Reed, and a butter to 6A Maury Lane. And so when it is the right moment for comments, I would love to give them.
Thank you for attending, Robin. Holly, would you please remind me, is the public comment at the beginning?
That's really if it was a general comment, but if there's any comments on particular applications, they'll come after
presentation and
presentation.
Comment.
Correct. Yep.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Matt, thank you for joining us.
Sure.
Could you please present your project?
Sure. Thank you. So this is an application for a new dwelling at 6A Maury Lane. I don't know if you're familiar with the site. It's
Yes, we all are.
okay, great. So it's actually recently, or not recently, maybe about a year ago, subdivided. So it's kind of tucked back behind 28 Main through an easement. And so in terms of its, visibility, we feel like it's going to be pretty tucked back there, behind these two other properties. So it's basically a new dwelling, and we had a specific massing schematic that we wanted to propose. There is a bit of an L shape to it. The garage is actually based on we tried to pull some details from the existing kind of the shack type shed type structure that's on the property that all you had asked us about, and we're still working on that. I think we're trying to figure out the details, what's happening to that, but I just need to get more information from the ownership on that one. But basically, we tried to kind of pick up some of those details and add them to this ancillary structure. The details are fairly simple. We've got cottage corners. We've got a kind of a simple flying rake. It's a 1x8. Try to keep the details fairly simple. There's a little bit of a shingle swale. We thought the 2/2 windows were the most appropriate style for this structure. And just by nature of what the lot is and how you access it and approach it, the idea is that this south elevation is primarily what you see when you come in, but basically the two faces of the structure are the south and then the garage from the west as well. So sometimes with the two-dimensional drawings, it's kind of hard to see it, or imagine it in 3D. We can provide some perspective if those would be helpful as well. Then we've got some one-story additive, pieces to it, if you will. The main, core of the house, where it has, second-story living space is through that main mass, if you will, and then the garage and the first floor bedroom are intentionally one-story elements. So there's some level of additive massing. But on the left side of this southern elevation, that's really our primary piece here. We've got a one-story, porch, and basically the intent with that was to emulate or imply a notion that this wasn't an open porch that was enclosed over time. So anyways, I could go on and on, but I look forward to the board's comments. So that's all I have, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Before the board begins, let me go ahead and take comments from Robin.
Hi, good morning, and thank you all. So I'm Robin Reed, and I live at 6 Maury Lane, which abuts the property, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to give comments. So just as an overarching comment, we don't feel that this proposal fits in the context of the neighborhood and will erode the historic value and pastoral nature of the Sconset Historic District unless there are significant changes. The mass of the proposed property is grossly out of scale at 2 stories tall for the entire 75-foot length. And to put this in perspective, the biggest house on the block, which is next door at 8 Maury Lane, is 50 feet long, but this proposal is 75 foot long. So we feel that the mass and the footprint should be meaningfully reduced to be in scale with the surrounding context of the neighborhood. Second, despite it being a flag lot, the property is actually quite visible from Maury Lane because Maury Lane has a slanted angle to Main Street. And so this means that the entire west and south elevations will be highly visible from Maury Lane and create the impression of a monolithic wall that divorces the home from the neighborhood. Third, the proposed siding of the structure is way too close to 6 Maury Lane, and being so close to one another will exacerbate the sense of a monolithic wall. So together, the two structures are going to read from Maury Lane as a 115-foot long property because you will not see separation between them. So we feel that the structure should be set back further east from Maury Lane, deeper into the property to be consistent with the spacing of other homes in the sub area and to maintain the pastoral quality of the area. This was a farm and a sheep pasture, so, so respecting that history is important. Fourth, the west facade, which directly faces Maury Lane, should not be a flat 2-story wall. HDC should require a step back to emulate the classic dominant mass supported by additive masses that's typical in Sconset. And fifth, we feel that the ground cover should be limited to a regular buildable 11,500 square foot area of the property and not include the flagpole driveway to make it consistent with the SR10 zoning, which has a 25% allowable ground cover. And without action by the HDC, the de facto ground cover allowable will be 33%. So this will only sort of exacerbate the non-conforming out of context nature of the property and proposed structure. And lastly, the historic barn we do not feel should be removed and should be kept within its same spot, though we understand that that is going to be addressed as a separate agenda item on the HDC. So, you know, really our focus of our comments today are mostly about the mass and the placement and the design of the structure. So thank you so much for the ability to comment. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Ms. Reed. I'm going to throw it over to the board now. Does anyone like to begin?
Yeah, this is Mary. My concern is that we're being asked to consider the dwelling itself without considering the elephant in the room, which is, and it's clearly stated on the plans, the planned demolition or destruction removal of the historic barn. It was well known by whomever was to buy this flag lot. And the only reason that they were allowed to, that the Arnott family was allowed to separate the two lots, 28 Main and 6A Maury, was because of the existence of that structure. To now then just ditch the structure is really inappropriate. So at the very least, we can't give any opinion until that, in other words, these two applications need to be linked. I personally am entirely opposed to the removal of the historic barn, which is actually a wonderful old structure. And it seems to me that they got to leave it where it is and figure out a design to go with it if they're going to build on this property. But
Very sorry to interrupt. As far as I understand, there will be a later application for the existing barn that is there.
right,
So it isn't.
but they need.
It isn't part of the discussion today, except that that what I'm hearing is a suggestion to have this application track with the application for the removal of the barn.
Exactly. That's my comment. It needs to track.
Holly, if we have the two track together, what will happen with review of this? Will go ahead to HDC? Should we go ahead and have our comments, even though it sounds like there's a suggestion to have them track together?
Yes. So as Matt already alluded, I already brought that question up to him on that application. You should provide your comments on the architectural merit of this particular structure, and through comments back to the HDC, can request them to track. That obviously will be up to them to make that call, but I can definitely be bringing that up to their consideration. So please provide comments on the architectural merit of this structure.
Thank you, Holly. Mary, is there anything that you'd like to say specifically?
The structure itself? Sure, it's way out of scale. I mean, it's ginormous. It's sited in such a way as to really change the nature of the neighborhood. I have grave concerns about this one.
Thank you, Mary. Anyone, Clement or?
Yeah, I have some comments. Well, I mean, there are lots of comments, but you look at the structure is 28 feet, 8 inches tall, which I think is enormous, not to mention the width, which has always been mentioned is 72 feet, I think. The view from Maury Lane as it exists now, the property next to this, which I believe is the Vectis, which would be 23 or something Main Street, all the land behind them is clear. So there are no structures on it at all. So it just, you see there, this totally blocks all of that openness by having the width and the height of that house. It just negates it. I guess they're only 8-foot setbacks because it's very close to both properties, to Robin's property as well as the property to the east, I believe. It tucks right back into that corner. I mean, without mentioning the sloping of roofs and fenestration and anything else, I just think the size of the house is very out of scale with the neighborhood and with the views of the neighborhood and the open feeling of the neighborhood. I think that's where to kind of start. And then if you want to pick out details or it's, you know.
May I just add one quick thing while this picture is still up? And that is, if you look at the house with the shell driveway, which is just below the outlined blue lot, you'll see a house which is 50 feet long. If you then, with your eye, take that and superimpose it on the blue lot, you'll see what we're talking about in terms of out of scale mass.
Thank you, Mary. Caroline, do you have comments?
Yes, my first view was this view, and how lovely the relationship of the other houses are to their land, which is very open, gives privacy to neighbors. And I just think that this structure is designed, is very aggressive and without any charm at all. And I'm surprised, Matt, I have to say, because I was just down at the Galley Beach admiring an exquisite jewel box of a house that you had done down there. And this to me just doesn't have any of the little twists and turns and unusual, unexpected little things that you expect in Sconset.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm sorry, but I just—
That's okay.
I just feel it's just huge. The other comment I would make is that I guess we can't ask for this, but in addition to the barn, which I've been in a lot and is structurally so wonderful, I would like to see what the plan for the rest of the property is, since in today's world, it will all be granite with a swimming pool. And I think that needs, as a consideration to Robin and to the Vectis, to people who have been there for many years, I think it's important to present an entire project. So those are my comments.
Thank you, Caroline. Are there any other comments? I noticed Mary Bergman, are you here for this?
Hi, Angus. Yeah, Mary Bergman, Nantucket Preservation Trust. I'm kind of just here just to pay attention to all that's happening in Sconset. But I do want to bring up that this barn, as it has been noted, that from Michael May's research, this barn is, likely contemporary with the house and was at least built Crosby ownership, which was between 1836 and 1881. This barn is noted in a Georgian S painting in the NHA collection, and he was a landscape painter in the 19th century. The painting is entitled Behind Barn. Betsy Tyler has done research on this property as well. And I think it's really important that when the HDC is considering these decisions, they need to decide, is this historic or moving forward to even consider a new structure. So I would argue that it is historic. So that's me. Thanks.
Mr. Chair, can I just get clarification on that last point? Mary.
Please go ahead, Matt.
I was just curious, are you implying that no new structure, in your opinion, no new structure should be allowed?
No.
Oh, okay.
My opinion is, my question is the barn going to be moved and demolished? And it seems like this is more of a comment on the HDC procedure than,
Sure.
Your proposal, which is
one thing I can't say about the barn is,
yeah.
I'm sorry, it was just that, we're basically, we've been talking through a number of different, options, but, definitely understand what that structure, is. So we're just trying to get some clarity on it ourselves, and we don't want to, discuss what I think our plans may or may not be until we get some more clarity. And there's, so that's something we're working on. So I understand everyone's perspective on that matter. So
yeah, it's a setting aside the proposal. It seems like a real procedural concern that, which is not, I don't know, I'm thinking about being in an open meeting, but it is a concern, that there should be a decision about where are things going to move, or are they going to go away, and then what new thing is going to come next. I think there's a lack of clarity throughout the whole process. So it's frustrating to all sides. And anyway,
well, we're certainly not trying to cause any frustration here. It's just a matter of knowing, the parts that we do know at this point versus what we don't know. But we understand that this structure, and maybe perhaps we shouldn't have, said to be removed, but basically, maybe just left it alone until we knew exactly what the plan was for that structure. So, but it shouldn't preclude us from. I understand that it is on the property. We acknowledge that it's important, and but at this point, it's somewhat independent. I did hear the comment about having a kind of a master plan for the property would be helpful. So in that regard, I definitely understand it. We're certainly not trying to frustrate anybody at all. So it's just a matter of getting details. We don't want to start talking about things until we get clarity on what the exact plan is. And so, but I appreciate the comments about the architecture of this structure, and so that's all I have.
Thank you, Matt. Well, if everyone's finished with their comments, I can just echo a few of my own. I've heard all of the comments, and I pretty much agree with everything that's been said. This is for a very long time. Parts of this for as long as the property has been built there, the original property on Main Street, to at least my 40 years of going by this property on Main Street. Anyone familiar with Main Street is aware of the spacing of the houses, the size of the properties, the scale of the houses, and the details of the houses. And this is shoehorned into a place where historically there would have been or has been an open field and an old barn, and the pastoral setting is being lost in this proposal. And because even on Main Street and Maury, where the houses, especially at this corner of Main and Maury, are distant from each other, their sizes and their characteristics are separate and highlighted. And this is built. The proposal is so close to neighboring property that it will read as a continuous structure, and so it does change the character and the feeling, the historic feeling of this particular part of Sconset that is highly visible. So that's kind of the global impression, but getting into details, there, other than stepping the structure back and scaling it back, trying to have some relation to the existing structure that's there, which is the barn, dropping a considerable part of it, probably at least half of it, to one story, or have a more typical additive massing where there's a significant drop from the main mass to the next adjacent mass, and so on. This barely goes down a little bit and then comes back up, and it does read as a monolith. The flare is a hint towards shingle style, and the windows are more towards Victorian with the steep roof lines. But I feel like to really get into the specifics, I feel like there's a lot that has to happen in the massing before we can really get into the specifics. But those are just what I'm seeing now. So unless there are any other comments, we'll move on to the next application.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you all for your time and comments, and all valuable. And we will take them and obviously see what the HTC has to say, but definitely appreciate your time and efforts as always. So thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
Thanks, Matt.
So we'll move on to Stone Post Way.
Yeah.
Is there anyone representing that project?
I did note that it's listed as the Rennerhans project, but the Rennerhans sold the house last week. It was listed in the paper. So it's gone to an LLC called 6 Wicks. And the Rennerhans live in the very Gambrell house on the corner of Hawk and Low Beach Road.
This application is for
a pool
and landscaping, which is in the west side or the back of the property.
Right.
Are there any comments on the proposal?
Just so depressing. I think to see so much hardscape everywhere. You know, that's my comment, I guess.
Clement or Mary?
Well, I would agree with Caroline, except that because this is surrounded by, I think, the Heller Trail, and will not be visible from, that's the Heller Trail areas, also won't be visible from the street. I mean, I can't have any actual objections.
Yep.
I would agree with Caroline. Too much hardscaping.
Clement?
Yeah, I mean, you have to say the same thing. Yet another pool and another, I mean, house to sub house connected by a pool. They do still have some grass in the front, but none in the back. So, you know, if we're always talking about runoff and water retention, and it's someday I maybe get a lesson in how pools are maintained, but I see a lot of water loss.
Even in the, excuse me, I'm sorry. Even in the front, it's all driveway. You know, what happened to trees and vegetation and I don't know. I think that all of the plans that come in should include the entire property. I feel as if we're being bitten to death by these, you know,
I'd have to agree about
things.
The proliferation of all of the hardscaping, and it really is going, in this case, north to south to nearly the border of the property. They won't even have weeds. I'm not sure how visible any of this will be, but I would recommend that it pulls back from the lot lines and covers less area in general.
Good point.
The bento box could, for instance, not be on the granite.
Now, this is Clement again. I didn't realize that was all driveway. It is really all hardscaped from edge to edge. So it'd be nice if that could be cut back somehow.
Okay.
Ours will be in front, of course.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, and that's already been done, but this just kind of builds on top of that, doesn't it? Yeah. All right. Well, unless there are any more comments, I think what I'll do is I'll type up the minutes, or maybe I'll work with Holly with that, unless any of you would like to do that.
Oh, you're so
Since
kind.
Rob is away.
So kind.
But anyway, so I won't take a motion on the comments, but I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Chair, before you do that, I would actually recommend making a motion on the comment so that way it's on the record.
Okay. Well, I'll take a motion on the comments that have been made. They just haven't been written.
My only, I mean, I feel like everybody was being, you know, as was pointed out, you can't make specific comments on the 6A Maury or whatever its address is. You know, the objections that we have are, I think, visceral. So I don't think that came through, as we were trying to be too polite. So I just would like to emphasize that I believe most of us don't like anything about what was proposed.
I think that's clear.
Okay.
And in the wording, anyone can take a stab at it. I will if no one else will. And we can pass around to make sure that the wording reflects everyone's thoughts.
Thoughts and feelings too. I mean, I think feelings are harder to express, and I feel like everybody was being very polite. So
we're being professional.
Trying.
All right, so I'll take a motion to accept the comments.
So moved.
Second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor? Caroline?
Yes.
Clement?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
And I as well. And a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion. It's Mary.
Thank you, Mary. Second?
Yes.
Yep.
Thanks, Clement.
Yes.
Caroline.
Well, after the fact, sometime, Holly, how can we address getting an overall view? I mean, can that be an item for discussion sometime, or I mean, so we get all the bad news at one time and can look at a project?
I think that would have to be, I think that would have to be an HDC policy. But they can't hold ransom one COA for another. But I completely understand the intentions of wanting, especially in this particular case, of having an overall concept plan, knowing what's going on instead of it kind of piecemealing, trickling in. I do see the intention of that. So I think you may have commissioners that also agree with you on that, I think.
Holly, may I add the unpleasant truth, and that is that when we get one piece of information at a time, we tend to make the decision they want us to make. And honestly, I feel like we know we're being run on this. I know there's a pool coming. I know there's a bocce court coming. I know there's all this, that they're going to take down the barn. I feel it in my bones. This is not a good precedent, this property. And we've seen it on too many others, and the pattern is too well established. And so we're all getting a little bit gun shy of these kinds of submissions.
I think it is helpful to have a comprehensive plan with any proposal so that you know what's coming. I don't think any of us saw this particular proposal when we were talking about the alterations to the original structure for the whole property. And then there was the pool, and then the guest house / garage. So this is a little bit out of left field. So it is helpful to have a comprehensive plan of the property. And I'm not sure how we can insist on seeing that for any one part of the project. You know, it might not be something that they're even aware of, but if they are, it would be helpful to see the whole thing.
Agreed. Agreed 100%. And all I can do is really stress it specifically for this particular piece of property when this comes up to the HDC. Looking at the agenda, just so you all aware, it's going to be a while before they get to this. And I don't see it happening this week, maybe next week.
And Holly, oh, excuse me.
I'm sorry, Caroline.
No, I just wonder when it is that the HDC will let us have Sconset.
I brought that up to the chair. Waiting. So
yeah,
I'm hopeful that we can have it on an agenda that's coming up soon, and I will let you all know.
I'd go to the meeting if they will do that.
Perfect.
The other proposal that came into your office a couple of weeks ago, probably 10 days ago, that was on the HDC proposal or agenda last week, but that we still haven't seen, is the project for Baxter Road. I think it's a house and a pool on the inside of Baxter. That still hasn't come onto our agenda.
Yeah, and they have not reviewed that yet.
No, I haven't reviewed it, but
I don't believe the application is 100%. For the record, Kathy is the administrator, and if she receives an application that is insufficient, she will hold it. Sometimes you will see them get put on the agenda for you all to review and then take it off, because Kadeem sets the agenda for us, for me. And sometimes, as you can imagine, with hundreds of applications coming through, it's a little cumbersome for that. So I do believe that one in particular, because I did raise the concern as well, that it wasn't sufficient, and it's been moved to the back of the new agenda list. If people don't provide what's required, that's where it hinders the time frame. So,
sure.
Sometimes, as you know, some applications do go before the advisory boards that is incomplete, and that's just something that got missed. But I know she does a wonderful job of making, and a hard job of trying to make sure that these applications are 100% ready for review from both an advisory board perspective, staff's perspective, as well as the commission.
Okay, thank you.
But just to clarify that,
yeah.
Holly,
I'm sorry.
I'd love to just clarify that. So that has been removed from the HTC as well?
It is not on their agenda that I can see. It would be under new business.
Great.
Yeah. So right now, if you look on the agenda for tomorrow night, we have 10 applications left over from April 27th new agenda, new business.
Wow.
That just gives you perspective. That's how many applications. So sometimes you all as advisory board members review applications way before the commission does. Right. And I keep track of those minutes, those comments, as well as my own, until it goes before the commission. Right. And sometimes they just don't get to them until a month out. It's just because the amount there's for the May 18th agenda, there's 81 applications.
Woof.
81. Now, this one in particular that we're talking about is number 63. So that's why I don't think it's going to be a while.
Sure.
It's going to be a while before that one. And because of that time frame, you may see the proposed move off of the barn before the HDC even gets to see this particular application. And sometimes that happens because just the multitude of applications. So it's unprecedented right now. Put aside Zoom and everything else. It's unprecedented.
Have them slow down.
We wish for some of it. So
thank you, Holly. Unless there's anything else, we'll resume our
thank you, Holly.
Motion. You're welcome.
Our motion to adjourn. I think Clement, had you made the motion? I've forgotten.
Mary made the motion and Clement seconded.
And seconded. So all in favor? Caroline?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
And Clement?
Yes.
And I as well. Thank you